Started. Thank you everybody for being here today. This is another one of our ELEA Faith-Filled Exploration webinars. And today we have ELEA member Jenny James here from First Lutheran Preschool in Ellicott City, Maryland. And her co-author, Leanne Christensen, also from Ellicott City, Leanne?
Yes, yes, I
Okay.
am. Originally from California, as is Jenny.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
but currently
Very
Ellicott City,
nice.
Maryland. Yeah.
Been across the nation. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're going to talk about enhancing outdoor learning environments. And this recording will be shared with all of our attendees today. Within about a week, I will send you the recording or a link to the recording. And today in this presentation, you'll see a lot of photos of children, and those children's parents and caregivers have given permission for their photos to be included, but we ask you not to share the video any wider than your own use or that of use with your staff. So again, thank you for being here. And Jenny, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you, Corey. It's a pleasure to be here, and I see some of my ELEA friends also. So I'm, welcome. I'm happy to do this and share some information with you all. I brought along my co-author, Leanne Christensen, and Leanne and I both lived in California for quite some time. She went to an ELCA church where my sister was the music director. And we did not know each other when we lived in California, but when we both ended up in Maryland, we both ended up at the same church. She was actually on my hiring committee, so she hired me.
Oh, Jenny.
And so, then we had that in common, that link. And, I think that's how church is. It unites us kind of all over the nation, all over the world. And so then, our partnership just grew from there. She served on the preschool board, and she's a professor at Towson University in the early childhood department. So we've written several articles together, and then we also wrote our book, Dig In, Outdoor STEM Learning with Young Children. So that's just a little bit about us. And I'm the director at First Lutheran Preschool, where we started an outdoor classroom, and that's what I'm going to share with you all today. So this picture shows people working in the space that has become our outdoor classroom. It is a plot of land that is in between two parsonages on our property. So this is the wooded area. To the right there in the building, and to the right is the church. The building to the left is the preschool. So we do cross the parking lot to get to this area. But this was like a cleanup day that we had before we had a fence installed. It was still very much in the dream stage at this point. But those are all volunteers from the church that are helping. So the way we sold this idea to our church, why an outdoor classroom? And the more I researched, the more I was able to stand firmly with the idea that, studies show that more and more children are becoming disconnected from nature. And that kind of tends to grow into adults that are disconnected as well. I just saw on a group that I belong to where they're having trouble recruiting teachers for outdoor learning because a lot of teachers just aren't comfortable outside. So that's one of the things we want to really tackle by having an outdoor classroom, is just helping people develop the love of nature instead of being preoccupied with video games, afraid, parents are often afraid of strangers coming and taking their children away if they allow them to play outside. So providing a safe space for that nature exploration is one of the things that we wanted to do. And we also want to help healthy risks, help children have access to jumping off the logs and just taking risks that they normally wouldn't have access to on a normal playground. We're we're so making sure that everything meets the safety criteria. It's a little bit different in the outdoor classroom. And I think we have someone waiting, so I'll just go ahead and admit that person. So we just invited the congregation to dream about what we could offer at our site. And what if we could reconnect people to nature using the space that we have. We already had a little outdoor chapel that really wasn't used that much by the congregation. I think it was put in by maybe a Girl Scout. It had some benches and a cross. So there was some interest in outdoor kind of worship or meditation, but we hadn't really considered it for children other than just a traditional playground. But one of the questions is, what if we offer this and it leads to environmental stewardship and taking care of creation and also taking care of our church grounds as well? What if we could create a safe outdoor space that supports a sense of wonder, curiosity, imagination? So those were all the things that we were looking for. And people can really get behind those ideas. People get behind the idea of children not on video games. I think that's like a universal thing that you hear from people who either grandparents or people or even parents who are saying they're on video games too much. So that really helps to sell your idea when you have a lot of people together thinking, yes, what can we do about this? So starting with our youngest learners, as you all know, that the research shows that regular time in nature facilitates development, well-being, and this is true for the teachers as well. Our teachers love our outdoor classroom. They prefer that to the playground. I think it's because it supports that creativity and imaginative play. It inspires collaboration, reduces violence and bullying. And we've actually have proof of that just in the way that they play in that space is different than how they play in our regular traditional playground. And I can't quite put my finger on it. I mean, there's probably a lot of different reasons why, but it's just a different type of play. It reduces stress. The teachers are less stressed in that area, creates feelings of empathy for plants and animals. Just this week, they found a lot of daddy longlegs spiders in that area, and they were kind of going on a hunt with the magnifying glasses and seeing how many they could find. So that has changed tremendously from being on the playground and a spider. So I think it's what we're doing is working. They're really developing empathy for living things and truly are interested in learning more about them. And really, that's when we want to catch them, when they're young. That's when they're developing their caring, their empathy, and a sort of reverence for outdoors. So part of my research for the book and also for just outdoor learning in general was I knew that a lot of this was something that I kind of felt was in my soul, that those kind of surveys that come out and say such and such shows that, and you're thinking, well, duh, I already knew that. They didn't have to do a whole big, survey on that. That's kind of how I was feeling about what I was hearing about all this nature learning. Like, well, of course. But one of my professors at school was saying, you should really look into Indigenous ways of knowing. Because I was thinking, it doesn't start like a long, long time ago, this interest in nature. And so what I found were some key ideas that really helped me see that this has been around for a long time. It really is something that aligns with our Christian faith. And it kind of gives me a sense of we're on the right path. So the first one that children are sacred gifts from the Creator, and that we love them, we nurture them, and we respect them. And that's something that I could really get behind. That children are born with integrity and worth. And why wouldn't we allow people that are born with integrity and worth be able to experience nature? That children are sensorial communication communicators with humans and non-humans. And that I like, because just being out in nature, there's life there. It might not, be a human, but there is life. And children are able to communicate with that life in nature. It uses all your senses, not just like sitting at a table with a worksheet. And I know none of you do that, but that's kind of always where I go for that example. They believe that children are part of nature, not apart from nature. So we are all a part of nature, not, they see it as a whole, not differentiated. And that they believe that children are confident and competent learners. And that's where I think that risky play comes in. If you believe that children are competent, that they are going to be able to stop themselves if it's too high, etc. Of course, you always want to have supervision, but that baseline of they're confident and competent learners really helps you embrace some of that play that comes with being outdoors. So they believe that play is essential to learning, and that's something I think that as early childhood we all can get behind. They also believe that curiosity is valued and necessary, and that's something that comes with being outdoors. Maybe not as much indoors, because indoors the teacher kind of plans everything and has control over everything in her classroom. Nature has a lot of surprises. And so that curiosity that comes from that is really valued by Indigenous peoples, being able to ask questions and that wonder. And they believe that each child has a right to act autonomously and make their own decisions, which isn't always something that gels with regular school. A lot of times we want to make sure that they're deciding exactly what we want them to learn. But this way of thinking is more open-ended, that if they're interested in spiders, let's say, that you would just really go with that you wouldn't say, oh, no, that's not our lesson for today. So those kind of things I could really grasp onto, and it helped me to see that, yes, these ideas have been here a long time. And Leanne was going to talk a little bit about some of the Western theorists that we all know and love, and how they kind of support outdoor learning as well.
Yeah, so I'm sure you've heard of these people in your various courseworks that you've had. And outdoor learning absolutely is nested in our Western theorists. And actually, and Jenny, can you go back one? Sorry. That's okay, no worries. And actually, part of the backdrop, this isn't a course in, these theorists, but if you look at when they're placed in history, it's kind of at the dawn of the Industrial Revolution. And these theorists a part of their work was, who are we as humans when we're divorced from nature, when we're not in nature, when we're in large urban centers? And so one of the people we think of with young children is Frederick Froebel, who Jenny told me his father was a Lutheran pastor. So very interesting, little fact there. But anyway, he believed that children should live in harmony with nature. And kindergarten, and you probably all know this, is the children's garden, supports active, curious, and creative learners. And as it says, there's the fun fact. And I think Jenny and I were really drawn to this also because in various courses and various classes we'd been in, there's just such a fissure between what these theorists, what the Indigenous ways of knowing, and what's happening in some early childhood classrooms. They're oppositional. Anyway, and then turning to the U.S., John Dewey he believed that children's own instincts, activities, and interests should be the starting point of education. So teachers should be facilitators of children's learning, not a lecturer totally directing and dictating what children are learning. And Maria Montessori out of Italy, she said a child needs to live naturally and not simply have knowledge of nature. So it's living among nature, just not learning about. So if we're just sitting in sterile classrooms, learning about nature, it's not the same as being one with nature.
And Leanne, I
yeah.
always like this quote from her that she talks about her own childhood, her own schooling was in a classroom where she said they were like butterflies pinned to the seats.
Oh,
And I think that just says so much about, you know, how then in her adult life, she was so against that type of learning because she knew you know, we just all needed to be free to ask questions, be curious.
And I see that when I'm out and about in certain schools, that they are that image being pinned, a butterfly pinned to their seats. And then there's Jean Piaget with the developmental stages. He said the child is the center of learning and play is essential to learning. And I don't know how play got to be this bad word. I hear teachers in early childhood settings saying their administrator walks in and say, why are those kids playing? They need to be learning. It's like, where did this come across that people don't realize, particularly early childhood administrators, that play is what children absolutely need to be doing. Loris Malaguzzi, he said children are complex and holistic beings, and they're competent. I think that's a thread that weaves through all these theorists, the indigenous ways of knowing. Children are competent, they are capable, and they are determined to make meaning of the world. And then Lev Vygotsky said children learn with the help of the knowledgeable other via scaffolding, and the child is the apprentice. What a child can do with help today, they can do alone. And what better place to do that than out in nature? And being outdoors, there's a lot of programs that need to be happening now. One area is social emotional learning. There is no doubt that is so important. The well-being of our young children that should be at the top of the pyramid. We need to focus on that, because if they don't have that, you know, the rest is not going to fall into place. And what better place to do that than outdoors? What better place to have authentic learning where children are capable and are able to create their own activities and meet with success? So being outdoors encourages movement. And once again, this isn't a class in brain science, but brain scientists are starting to reveal that movement and gross motor skills leads into fine motor skills, and practice with fine motor skills are actually the precursor skills to early literacy development. And children who don't have opportunities to do that won't be the better readers down the road. And I bet you've all heard the college and career ready. That's what we need kids to be. Well, they need to be out playing and developing their large motor so that they can be college and career ready in a developmentally appropriate way. And being outdoors, what better place to do all of that?
And I think, Leanne, you know, this is your slide as well.
Oh, sorry about that.
Sorry.
And I'm in Maryland. We have a very well articulated Department of Education that takes care of the whole state, birth through 12, you know, grade 20 through college. And so we have standards, and I'm imagining your states are the same. Well, outdoor learning, it isn't this separate thing and, oh yeah, they're doing that, but we need to come into the classroom to meet these standards. Outdoor learning is a place where we can support the learning domains and the standards, which will lead to children passing the assessments. And I know this sounds so for 3 and 4 year olds, but that's the world we're kind of living in. So if we can support this kind of learning for children, they'll better be able to, in a developmentally appropriate way, be able to meet the needs of language and literacy. And we're going to give you some examples of all of these disciplines in a minute of what it actually looks like outdoors: mathematics, social studies, science, health, physical education, and fine arts. The whole landscape is covered when we are in outdoor classrooms.
So this is one of my favorite slides. You know, I think one of the things that's lacking when you are inside is when, you know, you're talking about animals and you might be showing a cartoon of an animal, or even if it's a picture of an animal, it's not the same as being in nature, right up close to an animal. And this picture is actually taken a while ago. You can see by the mask, but that was in my own neighborhood, and that deer, was so close to the walkway. And there's so much more that can be said about that photograph than just an outline drawing of a deer, because you get into camouflage and what they're eating, and is it eating the pumpkin, and do they eat meat, or do they just eat leaves or vegetables or berries, or what do they eat? So there's a lot of questions that come from just being out in nature, among animals and plants and weather and everything. It also provides stimulation for all of the senses. So here we had a butterfly launch, and when the butterfly lands on his hand, and you can feel how that tickles, and there's just nothing like it outdoors in the winter when there's snow, and how that feels. And this was something that was so surprising to me, that kids will just hug a log. They'll just climb up. We have these logs that are just laying down on our outdoor classroom, and they'll just climb on those and put their face right up on that rough bark and feel what that's like. And it truly does stimulate all the senses, and that's how they really learn in a really rich way. So basically, this quote just says that it's the same way that scientists learn, that they use all their senses to observe and draw conclusions about objects and events. And that's exactly how children are learning in that outdoor environment. And I don't know if Leanne, if you wanted to take some of these. This is kind of an
Sure.
example of kind of some scientific discovery with shadows, and they were having quite the conversation about that. And this was just on our regular traditional classroom. And I'm sure you've seen, and many of you have, had these kind of experiences as well, where it doesn't have to be Groundhog Day to talk about shadows. It just happens when you're out there in nature. This is something that we put together because we grew lettuce, and there were so many things that we learned through that lesson that we hadn't really considered until we actually did the lesson. So we didn't start off by saying, we want children to learn this and this and this. We kind of just dove in and planted lettuce seeds, and then afterwards kind of reviewed everything that we learned. And it was quite remarkable. And so just this one lesson helped the teachers understand how much the children were learning from this kind of a lesson.
And technology, I'm going to hop back just to the other slide about the sciences. A lot of times we think of the sciences as like, you need to learn about butterflies, you need to learn about this or that concrete like topic. But if you looked at the standards, and I know that's me, I'm the standard person, because if we can leverage what the government is telling us to do in a way that's developmentally appropriate and use that language to explain what we're doing, I think then policymakers and administrators will understand what we're doing. So with that, with the lettuce example, there is no curriculum that says, oh, grow lettuce, right? But what if you did look at your state's curriculum in the sciences, it's about discovery, it's about comparing and contrasting, it's about creating models of what you discovered, creating charts and graphs. So this lettuce, totally, we could take it, make a diagram and show exactly how it maps onto what the state is saying the kids should be learning. And it's all about observational skills and discovery. And along with that, the next slide about technology, you might go, outdoors technology? That's not technology. Well, your iPhone sitting in your hand is not technology unless you're using it to solve a problem. So it's more sophisticated than the rockets that went to the moon in 1969 or the Apollo mission. However, unless you're using it to solve a problem, it is not technology. So in the outdoors, children are using low tech to solve problems. They're creating problems and solving problems. I'm going to give you one, though, out of the daycare world. I was doing a workshop talking about this, and this wonderful woman who did home daycare, she gave an example how she was making breakfast for her kids. And they were all sitting around the kitchen table, and the toast got stuck and it started burning. And so she she didn't just, fix it. She talked them through the process and how do we need to unplug, and there's electricity. And she used a fork after it was unplugged. She was all about safety to take the toast out of the toaster. That is the technology that we're talking about for the STEM and science, the scientific process and engineering. Because that was an engineering design problem that she fixed. This toast was stuck. Her phone had nothing to do with it. The high tech in her house had nothing to do with it, but the fork was the technology. So let's look at these kids here. What technology are they using? The little girl on the log, she wants to get a closer look at the birds. So her technology to solve her problem is a pair of child-friendly binoculars. The preschool has an outdoor kitchen. These children are baking and solving problems. How are we going to get the ingredients? They're using mud and sticks. They are using forks to do that. That is their problem was, how do we get the materials into the pots? Their technology was the forks. And there's a little girl with a magnifying glass. Once again, she wanted to be able to see something more up close. So this is what we're talking about in technology. Jenny, off the top of your head, what other technology have you seen the kids using outside?
Well, these are, I mean, we have lots of spoons and rakes for digging, shovels for digging, anything that they need to be able to carry out the play that they're doing is something that we try to provide. We do provide like paint.
So that tech to solve those problems.
Yeah. I think I have some more. Oh, so with engineering too, we've just put out some cardboard that we thought
along with
that we'd see what they were doing, and they just kind of came up with these ideas on themselves. So it wasn't like today we're going to do ramps. They just kind of came up with this idea themselves to do the inclined plane. And then the one little girl on the right there decided to make a bridge for ants. And she just used some bark and some sticks, and that was her bridge. And that was she solved her problem, that the ants needed a bridge. And I think our point here is that engineering for children is going to look like it's solving the problems that children have. So it's not taking adult themes and putting it down on children. It's using what children are interested in and building on that. And I think I might have lost Leanne, so hopefully she'll find her way back on. But this is how
I'm back.
Oh, okay.
I lost. I don't know what happened. I got kicked out. And then, anyway, and along with that, back to the engineering, I've read a lot. I love listening in my car to biographies and memoirs, and I've listened to various scientists, and they all talk about the discoveries they made in rambling outdoors or indoors with loose parts and discovering. Steve Wozniak, his dad was an engineer, and he just hung out in the garage playing with stuff. It wasn't directed like you need to do this. And I think everybody kind of wants their kid to be a computer engineer, but how do you get there? It isn't sitting in a chair, writing and doing a worksheet. It's having opportunities to do that. And looping back to that, it's supporting our language arts curriculum. The number one predictor of a competent reader by third grade, you might be surprised by this, it isn't their capability in phonics. That is very important. You need to know how to decode words. But the biggest consistent predictor is children with rich academic vocabularies, which mean they know they have a knowledge base about the world so they can comprehend what they're reading. And so the outdoors supports that. It also supports reading and writing of informational text. The little girl is on the log is comparing colors and talking about colors and the different shades of colors. And think of the colors of nature. It's not like being indoors. It's much more diverse. The classroom also has a more traditional place to read, a cozy, blanket to read on. And the books they change up depending on what the kids are interested in or the seasons. And once again, the children are learning rich vocabulary and being exposed to rich literature that will help them.
One of the things, Leanne, that was
Yes.
really surprising to us was we put field guides out that, you can purchase. They're already laminated. That has been the most popular thing that we have put in that outdoor classroom. And they'll look at the different pictures of the birds. And, I think there's even one on different fish that, I don't know if they'll ever find one in our outdoor classroom, but
they're trying.
they love walking around or with, the native plants and things that are native to Maryland. So that's an easy thing you can do. Just find things that are books that have pictures that are native to your area, and the kids just, that is just one of their favorite things. Also, we have a wonderful easel that we just put up, that was put up by actually an alumni who is now working on his Eagle Scout, and he built that easel for us on the left. And it's so great to see how they interact with art materials when they're outdoors as opposed to indoors. There really is a difference. And I think that just being outside, there's not that constraint. They can be a little messy and it can get, sloppy, and it's okay. There's just, the extra time. For some reason, it just seems like it's not rushed. They can take their time. The paint might dry a little faster, so it's a whole different experience. The picture in the middle is something that they were working on this summer that was, I think they were building boats. So that was one of the projects that they were working on together. And it's very free. It's whoever wants to come to the table can come and create. And as you can see, there's quite a few people that can sit around that small table or stand around the small table. And then this is just a picture of, this is our traditional playground, and we happened to plant pumpkin seeds that grew all the way into the playground. And that was a whole nother thing that you can bring into your math group, that, counting seeds, counting the blossoms, counting the pumpkins, measuring the vines. I mean, that vine went, even further along the school. That was, quite spectacular. And even the teachers were very impressed by that. We shared a lot of photos on our WhatsApp, to each other every time we'd go and check it out. Just placing pumpkins in order by size. There's just so much you can do. And that was very minimal effort, just planting those seeds. So depending on what time of year you're in school, what the weather's like near you, it can be a whole different project. So, I've talked a little bit about the freedom to explore and going in and out of activities, and that's really fun to watch. And they do get a deeper understanding of the concepts that you're hoping to connect them to. It's all very child-led. It's fascinating to me when I take families out there, when I'm giving a tour of the school. Everybody just seems to be more relaxed. Even the parents kind of take a deep breath. Children will often just wander off on their own, or they'll, take their mother's hand or their father's hand and pull them along to see what's going on out there. So it's a whole different vibe that you get when you enter that space than when you're in the classroom. The classroom tends to just the indoors, it's just a little more anxiety on the part of the parents. They're wondering if they're behaving correctly. The children, they're hoping their children don't embarrass them. It's all of that kind of stuff going on. But when you get outside, it's a whole different thing. And then we also do some bringing of the outdoors in, and this is also possible at any center, that here we had some tadpoles that were donated to us, and they had their little clipboards where they were taking notes and drawing pictures of the tadpoles as they grew, and that was a really fun project to do as well. And so, you know, how do you do it? I'm sure that's probably why a lot of you are here, is just how can I make this happen? One of the things that we did was we had, we used ELEA. I called Corey and I said, you know, I think we need a new mission statement. And so she was able to connect us with someone who came out to our site, and we got a group of people together from the church, not necessarily people that were on our board, but kind of decision makers in our church. And we got them into the spaces, and we took them outside and took them in, you know, around to our indoor of our classrooms as well. And, you know, a lot of those people hadn't really taken a tour of the school. They'd been to church every Sunday for most of their lives, but had never stepped foot in the education building. And that happens. But I think they had a new understanding of what our mission could be. And then, you know, to be out in that outdoor space as well really helped us come up with our statement. And that picture on the right is one of our members who created the outdoor kitchen for us. So there he was working on that. And you need to look at who your stakeholders are. So the person in the middle of the picture, there's our pastor, Pastor Mike. And then on the right, that's one of my teachers. On the left, that's one of my former teachers. And so two of them are members of our congregation. One is a member of a different congregation. But that was on a volunteer day where we spread mulch all around. But you want to get everyone involved. We had to get that area zoned. So even people on the zoning board, you want to consider as your stakeholders. People in the community were very curious. They couldn't wrap their heads around the fact that it was a classroom that didn't have any walls. So I think once the zoning board realized that we just wanted to build a fence around the woods, they kind of were like, well, why are you even here? You know, but those people then are part of your stakeholders because they really wanted to see it become successful. Everyone can get around the idea of people not using games, you know, gaming and all of that, the iPhones, and getting kids off of that kind of technology is something that everyone can get around. The neighbors were great. And our preschool board and parents were awesome as well. So you just kind of want to get everybody involved, even the people that came. We had to get people come to look at the trees to see if there was anything, arborists that would come out to see if there were any limbs that need to be taken down. And he was so impressed by what we were doing. And then the tree guys came, they loved it. They were like, oh, I wish we would have had this when we were kids. We would have loved this. So we got a free truck full of mulch because of it, I'm sure, because they were just, you know, totally behind what we were doing. So any time you can share that message with your community, I'm sure that you'll have people that are right behind you saying, yes, yes, we need this. Our grandchildren need it. Our kids need it. You know, what can we do? And then we connected this place to our church in ways that we hadn't really thought of before. We always had a carnival. We took the carnival from being inside to outside in that space. Vacation Bible School now uses it. And that has, you know, kind of made that a whole lot more fun because they can do games outside. For our fall festival, we get a bunch of pumpkins and we put them out there and everyone gets a free pumpkin. We have games out there. So it's just been really fun to use some of those things that we used to do in other areas of the church and bring them out to this space. people enjoy it. They enjoy connecting with nature. They enjoy connecting with each other in this space. And then as far as growing faith outdoors, I mean, I think that comes naturally every day. But there are some things that we do put in place when we have chapel. Sometimes we'll have chapel in this outdoor classroom, which is always really special. And you can hear the birds singing and while we're singing, and it just seems like all nature is together participating and singing praises. It's a very special time. We've also done our butterfly releases with our pastor present, and he'll say a little blessing before we release the butterflies after raising them from being caterpillars. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can incorporate faith activities into your program, and probably a lot of things that you are doing inside, you just take them outside. And it takes on a whole new meaning. It's again like that example of the drawing of a deer and a real deer. It's the same sort of thing. You know, you're talking about creation indoors in your building. You take them out to creation and talk about creation. It's a whole different, more meaningful experience. So I also wanted to show a little video of what our classroom is like in action, if that's okay. And then we have a few minutes for questions.
We can't see the video yet, Jenny.
Oh, you can't see it?
Nope.
Oh,
I just have your slides. You might want to stop sharing and then share again, and
Okay.
so that you can just view your video.
sorry. Can you hear it?
A little bit.
Okay,
I thought I could hear it a tiny
Oh.
bit, but
maybe this will work, I think. Let's see, I'll start it over again. Can you see it now?
yes.
Is it big?
No, it's small.
Okay. Let me see.
And when you go to share the video, there's a button at the bottom that should ask if you want to optimize the audio.
Okay. Let's try again. Let's see. Sorry. I'm going to start it over. And go to share. Optimize for video. And let me see if I can make it bigger. For some reason.
And I can see it okay on my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the center, like it's a
Okay. Is it
yeah.
like a rectangle in the center?
Yes.
Okay.
Like a portrait mode video.
Is that good? Can you see that?
Yes, there is some sort of a pop-up bar in front of it.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
It's just at the top. It's good.
I want to see a worm coming. Emergency. Here come the big. Here come the big block.
Titia, we're letting the butterflies out. You want to hop down? Ariana, come here.
You can see that some of them are holding those field guides. And this class is letting their butterflies go. You're all back. Were you able to see any of that? Okay,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's fun to see them engaging like that.
Yeah. And that just happened to be a day when we had a couple of classes out at the same time. So you can kind of get an idea of the space. It didn't show the whole space, but you get an idea. Does anyone have any questions for us? Lynn?
Hi, I'm Lynn. Hi, Jenny and Leanne. And hey, Corey, thank you for putting this really cool presentation on. As a born and raised Western Pennsylvania girl who has been transplanted for the last 23 years in the Arizona desert, I am longing for those trees and green and leaves and sticks, and it's just wonderful. My question was, since we are in Phoenix, we do have a large majority of our year where we can do a lot of things outdoors because of the weather. April, May, August, September, not so much, but then things really are pleasant the rest of the year. So we can do a lot of things outdoors. How do your teachers take turns with that space? Are they on a certain schedule? How do they utilize that space?
Yeah, we try to be outside at least 45 minutes every morning. And
Mhm.
so since we have the playground and the outdoor, they kind of alternate. So
Mhm.
on one day, they might have the playground, on the next, they'll have the outdoor classroom, and vice versa. So that's kind of how we do it. And this year, our class sizes are pretty small, and so we combine at that time. So we'll have a couple of classes out there at the same time, which works out
Gotcha.
fine. Mhm.
Right. Yeah, you've reinvigorated me because we've got a lot of those things in place outside, the outdoor easel and tables and such, and things that kids can do things. So you've reinvigorated me to make longer use of our outdoor space. We also go outside every single day, even when it's too hot, not too hot, but we go outside every day for at least 30 to 40 minutes, but
Mhm.
you're inspiring me to extend that,
Oh, nice.
and do maybe some outdoor chat. I've taken some notes. I've written a lot of things down. Maybe outdoor chapel sounds really wonderful. Outdoor snack,
Mhm.
lunch outdoors and those kinds of things, which we can do a lot more of, and we haven't been
Mhm.
taking advantage of it. So you've motivated me to encourage the staff to go ahead and do
Oh,
that.
that's
So your
great.
space is wonderful. It looks just so inviting. As a kid, I would want to be there in that space.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, it just
That's
looks
what
terrific. So
That's what I'm so grateful. I'm a California girl. We had a very small backyard, but my mother made sure that I was able to play in the dirt and make potions and witches
yes,
brew and whatever it was out there. And I think that's really been something I've carried with me as an adult,
mhm.
So I'm happy to hear that. I think it's so important for young children to be able to experiment and experience.
Big time. And we've noticed an increase in kiddos over the years, and I think a lot of it is due to electronic things that
Mhm.
don't want to necessarily get messy.
Mhm.
And so I think this invites them to do it, and I think it's all really great. So thank you for this. I'm motivated.
Good, good. Any other questions?
I think that I live in Chicago, and
Mhm.
so the fact that you are blessed with the space that you have, whether wherever you are, if you're blessed with a green space bigger than a 10 by 10 feet wide, and some of these children, it's harder to be able to create that sense of curiosity in one way, only because it could be like this one school that I'm working at, they don't have an outdoor playground. There's a parking lot by the church, which is a block away, that's cement, and then they have a little cement gangway. It's called a gangway. It's a walkway between two buildings. So the challenge is, how do we find that sense of wonder
Mhm.
in a place that it's harder, like,
Right.
and I think, for our kids, that they're just used to cement. Your children are used to the
Mhm.
dirt and the bugs. So finding bugs outside in a cement parking lot, the anthills are like sometimes really
Yeah.
amazing. But
Yeah.
that's the challenge. And then the other challenge is for the staff to be intentional about understanding what that intercity, the city environment has to offer.
Right.
Whether it's just in the fact that the
I'll-
trees are changing.
Yes. Yes.
I'm
And
going to take a stab at
ahead.
answering that
Mhm.
because I work with Baltimore City teachers, and some of they physically cannot take their kids outside, and they don't even really have playgrounds on their on their school areas, and it wouldn't make sense to go outside, right? So I know the focus of this was the beautiful outdoor classroom, but then I want you to think about what can you do to bring it in. And so a lot of the teachers, their solutions were them going out on the weekend and finding a log with bugs all over it and bringing that into the classroom. And it's not the same, but at least it's something. Making their class, this one teacher brought in like pine branches and kind of set it up in her cozy corner so it looked like a forest. So it's not the same, but at least you're trying to bring that in. But I totally respect what you're talking about, because for some of us that is not an option. We can go to the parking lot and see the ants, but that's about it. Yeah.
Right. And for some of us, those teachers that are working in these schools, it was the environment that they grew up in too. So it's
Right,
how do
right.
we just kind of think past what we already know into what we can.
Yes, I
Right.
understand.
And I think in
Yeah.
some of these teachers, I
Yeah.
just try to
So
remind them.
because it's kind of a privilege to be, yeah.
Yeah, and try to remind the teachers just to open the blinds.
Mhm.
Yes.
Pick
Yeah.
pick the shades up so that at least they could see
Get the light
outside.
in.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And one
No,
of the
that's a
things we
legitimate
did was, which you might be able to do, is like those canvas bags that you can put dirt in and grow things in, and those you can kind of carry around. You could put them on a parking lot and water them, visit it or whatever, and take care of it that way. And it's something that's movable. So, if you have permission just to have like one parking space that you can use or something for something like that. But it is a challenge, and I am so interested to know how people in other climates can do this, because this is pretty awesome that we have this wooded area, but then it does come with risks as well, because we have had tree limbs fall, and thankfully not on anyone, but it's there's always upkeep to whatever area you're in. And so it is a challenge, but I do think it's so worth it, in the long run. And the other thing I'm thinking too, we did look at our local nature center. The Irvine Nature Center had an outdoor classroom that we looked at, and we kind of modeled ours after. So if you have something in your area, even if it's in the Children's Museum or something, that you can partner with someone there to say, look, we want to have more nature in our curriculum, more science or whatever, what could you help us with? They might be very willing to help you design something. So
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks.
I have a question.
Mhm.
You just hit on it. And so we received a grant from our synod to enhance and grow our outdoor classroom, which is in the woods. We're in North Carolina.
Okay.
And so similar probably to Maryland in terms of weather and things. What I'm finding is maintaining outdoor spaces is a lot of work because the teachers focus on their classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow the outdoor spaces fall onto me and I can't do it all. And I'm just wondering if you have any, how you all navigate that. Like we're trying to drum up more parent volunteers for things, but how you navigate the extra work that the outdoor spaces bring.
Well, we do call in the professionals, so we do have people come in and look at the trees like maybe every 6 months to make sure that we're keeping up with that. We're lucky to have some people in the congregation that are really into the environment and environmental education, and they kind of take on some of the role of keeping up with the plantings that are around. And you know, it's kind of like their hobby, and they're retired and they can have the time to do that. And our staff we've kind of like divvied up the responsibilities as far as you know, cleaning up the area, or at the end of the day, and then at the beginning of the day, someone go out there and kind of scout and make sure there's not any scat from deer or whatever, you know, that's right out there. I think for us, the biggest deal is the cost of, like, if we found that we needed more mulched out there or something like that, that would be expensive if we didn't have someone to donate that material. But I'm not sure what you mean exactly with upkeep is that takes your time. And it could be just that, you know, I have people that are stepping up to do it, and I'm not even aware. So
I think it depends on the area. Like we have more, just the way things grow, more weeds in some of our playground areas than we ever have had before. I've never had to spray weed killer for the first time this year. I think, you know, because we're in the woods, yeah, we have to do kind of a daily check of have limbs fallen, just to check, because we're in the woods, snakes, and other small animals. We actually had a shed built down in there so that we can pull out the materials, so we're not schlepping stuff up and down into the
Right.
woods, and just preparing that. You know, right now we have till we get our better boundaries in fixing those when they fall down, or, you know, I don't know. I run around a lot.
Yes. Well, we're fortunate too. Our pastor can identify poison ivy really well, and he will go out there and take care of it for us. I'm not as good as that at that, and I will take a picture and send it to him and say, you know, what is this? Can you get rid of it for us? So, you know, kind of enlisting people who might be good at one of those tasks, you know, is helpful. And there isn't a whole lot of prep that we do outside. So, you know, we don't worry about weeds and that kind of thing. We kind of let nature be nature. We do cut down, like with those forsythia that you might have seen. We do cut those back if there's a sight line that we can't see over to the other side. We'll cut those back. But we try to get the kids involved too. So even when I came out with my clippers and I was clipping those, they were hauling those branches up over to the corner, and you know, they all felt like they were contributing as well. So we just kind of take it in its natural state, and you know, as long as we feel that it's a safe place, that's kind of our first priority.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jenny and Leanne, for being here today and sharing your wealth of knowledge on outdoor classrooms. I did put a link to your book from your publisher, so people can take a look inside. And I also put a link to our next webinar next month. And this recording will be sent to any of you who are registered probably within a week or so. And you can find other recordings on our YouTube page. Any other questions before we sign off today?
Was so great. Thank you, Jenny.
Oh, great to see you.
I've been here. I'm just running around.
Well,
Taking my
know.
staff on a big trip. We leave in like 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for joining us. And I always see great things about your program as well. So yeah, great.
Well,
Good things
thank-
going on all across the ELEA.
Jenny, you were the one who got us on Steam, and now you were the one that got me on in my outdoor classroom as well. So thank you.
Awesome.
And Linda will be back to share with us in February. So
Good.
it'll be a couple months, but she'll be here for one of these webinars too.
Great.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.